Hey everybody, this is Cameron from Obnoxious Anonymous, and welcome to the Twin Peaks Thought of the Day. Today is Saturday, June 4th, 2022. My guest today is Mr. Richard Austin. You know him from What the Haiku. How's it going?
Very well, thanks. Very well. Good to be here. It's the first time I've talked about Twin Peaks in a long, long time.
I think the
So
last time
I'm
you were
excited.
here, we did the Inland Empire watch along.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's been a while. Um, so
It left me speechless.
yeah. Well, before we get into our discussion, why don't you tell everybody about who you are, what you've done, your book you've written, and what you're working on right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm Richard. Like you said, I a couple of years ago I wrote a book called The Ardenna Crossing, um, Between Two Worlds, which is the first part of a science fiction kind of series that I'm working on about a young 13-year-old who's taken from his home and basically shot out into space with a bunch of other people his age and some adults. And a little way into the journey, all the adults are killed in an explosion, and these children are left to kind of try and find their way and establish their own little society because the computer won't let them turn the ship around and come home. So it's part Lord of the Flies, part Battlestar Galactica, and yeah, so the first part of that is out on Amazon, and I'm kind of about a third of the way through book two at the moment, but I keep stalling. I have a minor plot problem which I'm trying to work out, which is really kicking me in the nuts. So, yeah,
How
that's
long you
about it.
how long you been working on that plot problem?
Oh God, you know what? I started writing the book pretty much as soon as I finished the first one, so that would be 2017. So I started it, wrote about 20,000 words, and then I hit this wall. And no matter how I've added little bits and pieces, but no matter how I go, I just keep running back to this problem, which it's one of those things where it's too easy. It's the kind of problem that they could just solve in 5 minutes. I need to find a way to get around that to where I need to be at the end. It's yeah, it's really interesting. Every time I go and try and work on it, I add a little bit more, I chip away, but I still end up back at this wall again. So it's my own personal black lodge I have to go through and emerge from the other side. But no, in the meantime, I find other stuff to do, like poems and things like that. I mean, every time I see a new picture from Maya Lundgren, I end up writing a poem about that because they're always so um, evocative when it comes. I like writing Twin Peaks poetry, so when I see one of her pictures, it'll remind me of some part of the plot, and I usually do a little response to that, which is nice. It keeps the writing going. And I just wrote a children's book as well called Curly Kale and the Case of the oh God, I can't remember what the title is now. The Case of the something cutlery. It's like Sin City but with vegetables and for children. So it's like the Maltese Falcon but with vegetables.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I've sent it off to a couple of publishers. I had a couple of responses, but nothing. It's these publishers. Sometimes they want to do deals where you chip in a lot of the money yourself, and that they'll provide some of it. But it's
What
not what I
about
want. It'd be easier for me to just do it myself on
that's what
Amazon.
I'm
I just
saying.
need an illustrator. Uh,
Right.
the, the the problem with this book is it needs more than me. It needs someone to actually draw because I can't draw at all.
Right.
But it would be
Right.
all stick figures. I need some kind of Frank Miller kind of vibe going on with this thing, and that's
But
proving difficult to find.
honestly, that I mean, it's so you're looking at like black and white photographs if you're going for that Sin City way.
Yeah, yeah, black and white with a bit of color and the right. I've got an idea of what every picture, every illustration has to be. I just in no way skillful enough to even try it.
All right. Well,
So that's what I,
if you're an illustrator, contact Richard Austin on
yeah,
Twitter.
yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of people who watch these shows, so you never know. I mean, a few people who worked on Queen of Hearts were viewers of this channel, and they reached out to me. So I
Yeah,
so it's always great to meet new people.
mm,
Um, well, you say you haven't talked about Twin Peaks in a while, so it
yeah,
got me thinking. I think it was last week. It was the 5th year anniversary of season 3, which seems almost impossible that it's been 5 years. I mean, that's a long time. I guess I just kind of take the pandemic year as just a lost year. Like I don't even count that. But 5 years, it seems like yesterday, and yet it also feels like a long time ago.
Yeah, that's it. I've had another child in that time, and she's now 4. So where'd that go? She wasn't even born when this thing started. That's hard to imagine on its own. So yeah, it is a
So,
long time.
looking back at season 3, how do you feel about it?
You know what? I think when it was going on and I was watching your shows every week, I think I became aware of you, I think about 5 episodes in when I wrote that thing for my website, which you saw. And then I came on. And after that, I started watching your shows. And I think at the time, I was watching every episode about 2 or 3 times a week.
Hmm.
So I'd watch it when it was first on, and I'd probably watch it again and again in response to something else. So I was really kind of immersed in it for that whole summer. And then since then, it's strange. It's like one of those things that I haven't really been able to go back to. So I haven't watched it all again since it finished. I've watched little bits of it, but I've never watched the whole thing through. I started a watch through of the whole season, starting from season 1, and the intention was to go through it, but I kind of got distracted halfway through. I think I was just starting on season 2, and then something else took my. I moved on to something else and just left it. But I've got that Z to A box set, which still has the wrapper on it. Actually, it's just sitting there, and I've got all this building work going on in the summer, and then after I think come September, I'm planning to do the whole lot again and see how it runs. So I guess I mean the answer to your question, I mean it's difficult to say because it's all still there from the first time round. So I've kind of got um, this kind of distant view of it now, where I remember the feelings of it, but all the those little intimate details, the little pieces of it, the different frames or the way things were shot is really not there in as much detail as I'd like, I guess.
I think it's also because when it came out, we were doing all these shows, and so I felt like I watched every episode like 5 or 6 times in a week, and so I feel like I've already watched it like
Yeah, yeah, no,
20
yeah,
times.
yeah, yeah. And there was, I'll admit to a certain kind of burnout with it as well, especially after the year of haikus and basically thinking about Twin Peaks every day,
Right.
uh, going back to individual scenes. After that, I've written a few poems since then, but really it is like I said, just when I see something by Maya that interests me, or I think when lockdown started, was it you put something on about Harold Smith? He's in his element now, and that reminded me of something. But even that, God, I mean that's good. That's 2 years ago now. So
Mhm.
this there's a long gap in between thinking because I think I just literally just had my fill for now, and if you think about it, I mean when the first lot of series finished in 1990 or whenever, and then we had the film in 92, I still that was really that whole series was really important to me, and it kind of lived on through buying the VHS tapes and whatnot. But there's got to be about a 5 to 10 year period in there somewhere where I just didn't really give it another thought, didn't watch it. It was just kind of there in the background. I think I went to Snoqualmie in 2001.
Mhm.
Um, and after that, there's probably, after that, I've got, getting into teaching and all this and the years, and it was probably a good 9 or 10 years maybe between really kind of watching it again or thinking about it in general. I think it's only because we had the UK festival going on here for years. I think that started in 2009, but I didn't know anything about it until 2014. So it's like I mustn't have been looking for it because if I'd been on the Facebook groups and the message, if I'd been thinking about Twin Peaks back then, I would have found out about this thing and gone along to all of them.
Really, it only had been on since 2009 because the
Yeah, yeah, I
US
think so.
festival the US festival was on, I believe, since 92, 93. It was on for a long time.
Yeah.
I never went. Again, this is like pre-internet, so didn't know anything really about it. Um, it's very sad that the festivals have been shut down. Still have no real reason why. I mean, I guess I guess the idea was that they were going to take over the fest and do their own things, but then the pandemic kicked in, and that, of course, hasn't allowed them to do anything else. But I thought it was kind of a bummer, especially, um, I mean, both of them. But in terms of the UK fest, it was my understanding that Lindsay was like working with Showtime. So I just don't understand. Like, if they wanted to do their own thing, why didn't they just let Lindsay run it since she knows how to do it? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and something that was basically happening on the other side of the world, you know, it just doesn't it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It was just it was beyond Twin Peaks. It was just a really nice community getting together and having fun for a weekend. It was a chance to see people that, you know, at least from my point of view, I only got to see once a year, and it became about more than Twin Peaks. That was just kind of the kind of background
Right.
to it. So
Right.
it never really made any sense. I mean, I understand they had this whole Memphis thing planned with the free spaghetti and whatnot, and you
But
know,
that has nothing to do with the UK
yeah,
festival.
yeah. Why not? You know, what's the harm in it? You know, at least you know.
And then I remember there was discussion of like, I don't know about the UK, but I know here in the US there was discussion of like, well, what if we just call it something akin to it? You know what I mean? And then like we
Yeah,
still all get together, and it's like, well, I don't know. I mean, it just was a bummer overall, and hopefully something will eventually get picked up. But I've even seen people who are, long time Showtime, CBS, Lynch Frost production, Uber fans that are just like hating on the idea that it's gone so corporate. And it's like, well, it hasn't gone I mean, yes, technically it's gone corporate, but it hasn't because they haven't put out anything yet. So we don't even know like what they would
yeah.
what they have in mind.
There had to have been some kind of corporate strategy behind all this. I mean, they don't make moves like this unless there's somebody thinking something. But it's
But there
who
was
knows, probably one of these just idea. Somebody's had an idea, let's do this, but then that guy is just is not in the next meeting, and that's like, oh, oh well, never mind.
Well, I mean, I remember hearing that there was, drama or whatever for the US festival, but there was never any drama as far as I was aware from the UK fest. Everybody like had the best time there.
Yeah,
We even did like I actually reposted them on the channel. We did like these live streams where you and Frank would be like,
yeah,
calling in and showing off the fest and stuff, and those were a lot of fun, and
yeah.
it
No,
seemed like
it was magic, magic.
yeah, yeah, just I mean, the only thing that that always made me laugh a little bit was those live restagings of like Laura dying in the train car. I'm like, that's a little macabre, but
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Yeah,
But
that was messed up,
you know, but
but fun.
but still though, I loved seeing the pictures of like the sycamore trees and all that stuff. It just was cool. And
Hmm.
hopefully one of these days, something like that will get back going.
Yeah,
Um
I got my one and only tattoo there.
but yeah,
Got my little.
but it is bizarre to kind of think back and wow, there was just I mean, people still write to me to this day, and they're just like, the summer of 2017 was the best ever, and and again, like what you were saying, like I remember a friend of mine said, "Oh, Twin Peaks is like your first love." You'll go and you'll experience all these other movies and TV shows, but you'll always come back to that. And like you said, like I would go years without not necessarily not thinking about it, but just not watching it because whatever. Also, I didn't want to ruin my VHS tapes because for the longest time that's how I had it. Um, so I took like the best scenes and would like make my own sort of like compilation of my favorite scenes, so I could run that tape, but not the not the original recordings. Um, but yeah, I know, and like sometimes 4 or 5 years would go by, and then I would kind of return to it, and it really wasn't until um, I interviewed Jennifer Lynch that it kind of all flooded back, like all these memories and stuff. And so I thought, wouldn't it be fun to kind of just talk about it, and that's how this whole series of discussions started. Um, but
Yeah, I
what,
mean,
yeah,
I think you know, when you say first love, I mean that's pretty much that's a very accurate description of what it is for me because I think at the age I was as well, I think I was 14,
right,
and it was the first kind of grown up thing that I found for myself that Nobody introduced me to it. I saw it on the cover of the Radio Times, and for some reason I thought, oh, I need to watch that. And then I've got 2 years of getting into donuts and looking for cherry pie in Newcastle upon Tyne, which didn't exist at the time. No cherry,
Right.
no, 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 not
Right.
happening. Eating raw carrots, having candles in my bedroom, and like I said, you will always come back to it. And even if I'm not watching it, I still find myself randomly putting my thumb up at people in a very Agent Cooper fashion, at
I do.
work or wherever. It's
I do
just
too.
always, it's
I
part
do
of me.
too,
It's
because it's
part
a
of me.
lot easier than shouting across the room. You can just do the thumbs up. Um, Real quick though, I have to ask you. We went to Snoqualmie in 2001. I didn't go until 2003, which is shocking that I should have gone sometime in the 90s, but I didn't go till 2003, and I was surprised, and I'm sure you were too, that there was no
Oh,
mention of
no.
Twin Peaks there. I mean, it was like the stepchild that nobody talks about. It's almost like Fire Walk with Me put such a bad stench on it that the town just kind of pushed it aside. No, I mean nobody was selling T-shirts. No, even the diner was just kind of they'd
Wow.
redone their inside, and so there was like it was the town, but it also was a town that was pretending Twin Peaks no longer had like that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think the drawback for me when I went there was that I didn't have a car. I was very, I was still quite young. I was a bit reticent about renting a car, so I got the public bus out there from Seattle, two buses out from Seattle to North Bend, and then I think I got off somewhere just before we got to Snoqualmie, or just past the hotel, and then I walked into North Bend where the diner was, but I didn't really have a good idea of where all different. I didn't know where the sheriff's station is, so I've never been there. I didn't know where the high school was. Too late for that now. So I'll never see that. So basically saw the hotel and the falls and the diner and the bridge and I think I saw the gazebo and the big log. And that was about it in North. And I saw the Roadhouse. I had lunch in the Roadhouse. A very nice burger at the time. So yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah, yeah. So but yeah, you're right. There was no real mention of it. In the diner, there were a few pictures on the wall, as I
right,
remember. And
right,
and across from the diner, on the other side of the road, down about 50 yards,
hmm,
was kind of a gift shop, and there
right.
were a couple of things in there. There was a T-shirt, and you could buy a map of where all the locations were. So these are all the things you could have seen, Richard, if you had a car, if you had the balls to rent a car.
That T-shirt and that map did not exist when I showed up in
Right.
2003.
Another two.
Um,
I'd buy the last one, maybe.
yeah, and it was just so funny to go back. Um, so I went back in 20. I'm gonna say 2013. I think it was 2013. I went back. Still, really nothing there about Twin Peaks. Um, of course, after season 3 was filmed and it released, it's still. I mean, there's a lot more. I mean, they definitely. Now they have Twin Peaks days and things like that. It still isn't entirely like a town that's like David Lynch memorabilia all over the place, but they at least have embraced it since.
Yeah, I mean, I think because the US festival was always in Snoqualmie, and I knew about that long
Right.
before I knew about the UK one being a thing. I mean, for one thing, it was going on for years longer, but I knew about it, and I would have gone. But I think by the time I reached the age where I had the kind of disposable income to maybe think about flying to Seattle and doing this for a week, I had a job which meant I couldn't get any holiday in July. Because this thing the US Fest was always the start of July, and that was still
Mhm.
term time, so I couldn't. It was an impossibility. Otherwise, I probably would have gone.
I always told people, that we're like serious hardcore Twin Peaks fans. I'd say what you need to do is take about a week off, and you need to go up there prior to the fest if you are going to the fest, and have about 5 or 6 days with yourself, just privately up there, so you can take it all in. Have your meditative moments up there, and then do the fest. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, if you're just bombarded at the fest, even if you're having a great time, um, it's so personal to so many people that you kind of need that moment of reflection. You can't just be surrounded by 300 people.
Oh yeah, yeah. There was something very. I think because, as you say, there wasn't a lot of focus on it in 2001 or 2003. It was kind of an old thing. there was something about walking around that town where I kind of felt like I was the only one who knew. Like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, that's the diner, you know. I'm in Twin Peaks for real. And you know, there wasn't that, like you said, that whole, you know, hordes of people getting off buses and taking photographs of things. And
I
you know,
remember being at the Sailor's Lodge, and they're saying, "Oh, are you here for the fest?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Oh, it's next week." And I said, "Oh, okay." Um, and then they said, I said, "Oh, do you get excited about them coming?" And they're just like, "Well, it's great for the gift shops and and the people staying here and stuff like that." But they rolled their eyes that "Oh, here come the Twin Peaks fans."
right.
It wasn't very well thought of. Now it's like it's very much you know, like I understand that like when they put up the Twin Peaks sign, the Welcome to Twin Peaks sign, that it's like a joke of like who can run over the sign fast enough. Um, but I mean, but now there are people who obviously embrace it because they see that it's one of the ways the town is gonna continue on. Um, it's much like the town of Forks, Washington. Once they embrace Twilight, doesn't mean Twilight takes over the town, but by embracing it, it allows people to show up and spend money in the town and keep the town afloat. And yeah,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, New Zealand aren't complaining about Lord of the Rings and things like that, are they? It's brought a lot of tourists in.
yeah, but
But
at the same time, though, like the people who really want to see it, like they really want to see it because to get to New Zealand is a trek. I
yeah,
mean, that's
yeah, yeah. I'm still waiting to go on my Hawaii trip and go on the Lost, go see the Lost set.
I don't even think you can get over to that island, can you?
Oh, can you not? I see the occasional yeah, set of photographs on Facebook
Hmm.
of people who've been over there,
Well,
but
maybe they tip someone to take them over. I don't know,
oh,
but it's the same island that they did the first Jurassic Park on. So
oh really? Oh, I
yeah,
didn't know that. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
similar jungles, similar
Yeah.
with the waterfalls and things like that.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, obviously now when you go up there to the Snoqualmie North Bend, there's a lot more. You can
yeah.
go in a lot of shops, and there's buy this character's type of glasses, at the glasses shop and stuff like that.
Right.
So
The other place I did get over to Bainbridge Island when I went, and I got the ferry over there and hired a bicycle and rode up to the Kiana Lodge where
nice.
the loggers and stuff, and that was I remember that was nice because I was wandering around there and I couldn't find anybody, so I was just so I should ask someone permission to be here since it's someone's place. And eventually this lady came out and we had a little chat in it, and she said, "Oh yeah, we still get the occasional person coming who's a fan of the show." It kind of felt to me like I was the kind of monthly visitor who'd come along and want to see the sights, which felt nice because I didn't feel like I was like unwanted there. It felt like, oh, that's a nice little thing, and some people occasionally turn up here.
Right. So like, yeah, you being once a month, now it's like three times a week or something.
Yeah,
But I mean, yeah, I drove over there, and it was beautiful. And it's funny because they make it very clear that like you can't be on the grounds without an appointment and all that type of thing. And everybody I know that's gone there gets on the property. So obviously it's not that big of a deal to get there.
no, it
Uh,
is as I remember. There's no like you can just walk through the car park onto the beach. There's nothing really stopping you. It's just, in fact, I think if you were to walk along the beach from somewhere else, you'd probably just walk along there. It's just there was nothing clearly saying don't come through here. It's private property. So there's, there's someone who travelled from Britain. I thought, oh, bollocks to it. I'm just walking in there anyway.
yeah,
I'll
well,
wait
yeah,
until someone throws me out. Um,
yeah. I mean, it's not like you're bothering
no,
reception
no,
or
yeah.
something. And
I
and
put on my best Hugh Grant impression and terribly sorry. Well, that's
yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know. It's a beautiful area. Every time I go up there, I'm just like, God, I really would love to live here. And yet I think to myself, I have no idea what I would do living there. Like,
I,
and the and the idea of commuting into Seattle every day would probably drive me
I,
crazy.
I think I got very lucky with the weather when I went to Seattle as well. I think I had 4 days of unbroken sunshine, which is nice. I got to see everything bathed in sunlight. The only problem up there I find is that if this is always true, but it would be really gorgeous during the day, and then all of a sudden at 7 o'clock the temperature would drop like a brick. So I'd be out in the evening in my t-shirt and shorts. Oh, how lovely! Absolutely
Well, I
freeze them
remember
up, nuts off.
there was times because I've gone up there, I think 5 times now, and there it would be like heavy rain and snow at like 8:30 in the morning, and then by 10:30 sunshine and the snow is melted, right? And then about 2:30 it starts raining again. It's just erratic. You never know what you're gonna get. Which um, obviously when it comes to like filming Twin Peaks, that's they had to just embrace that, and so
It's one of the
yeah,
nicest. I think flying into Seattle as well was one of the nicest approaches I think I've ever been on in a plane because we
mm,
flew through. It came in through the mountains.
right.
So I flew for. I think I transferred in Cincinnati, so Cincinnati over to Seattle, and we came in right past Mount Rainier, and it's just gorgeous. Just seeing when your plane is like lower than the top of the mountain, you think that's just majestic. So I'll always remember that.
Every time I fly in or fly out of Seattle, I have the worst turbulence, and it scares me half to death. So, every
Well, I remember
time.
I had no bag when I turned up at Seattle because they'd left it in Cincinnati because I only whoever booked my flight only gave me 30 minutes to transfer from the London flight to the Seattle flight. So I always remember turning up in Seattle with no luggage, no clothes, just my kind of day pack. And as I came out of the terminal, there was a taxi rank, and I thought I'd get a taxi. And over the road it said limousines $25. So, yeah, so I've got no bag, but I'm going to get a limo into town. So, and there's this guy it was full on proper job. It was a proper limo waiting across there. And it was $25 to drive me into town. So I remember turning up at the youth hostel in Seattle in a limousine, which was just it's the only way to travel, Cameron.
Well, the way I travel now is I just Airbnb like where I'm going, and last time I was in in North Bend area, I just Airbnb'd a house behind the diner. I mean, it was probably like 100 feet away from the diner. It was amazing, right? And so it's like that's the way to do it. It's cheaper than a hotel. Let me tell you.
Oh.
Um,
Was there a little boy dancing around in a mask outside the back when you came out?
oh, I'm sure there was, but those are the Twin Peaks fans we don't talk about. Yeah. There's always some sort of kink happening up there, I'm sure. um so yeah, I you mentioned Maya Lundgren.
Hmm.
She's one of my absolute favorite, not just people in the Twin Peaks community, but artists in the Twin Peaks community because, and this is nothing against people who do what I'm talking against this, but like you'll see a lot of people who will artistically draw or sort of like do graphic novelization of like actual shots from the show. I see this all the time on
Yeah,
Twitter,
yeah,
and those are great. Those are beautiful. I'm not saying anything about those, but what Maya does to me is what I would like to see more fans do, which is those who know the show intimately in a way, every which way, and then communicate that by putting it in a new perspective.
hmm,
Like even the people who do the illustrations of shots we know because those are Lynch shots or those are one of the other director's shots from the show. I would love to see that, but maybe move the camera over 100 feet this way. Show me a different angle of the same shot. But I think some people are kind of nervous, like they think like, oh, we're redirecting Twin Peaks, and it's like, no, it's just give us a new perspective because we've seen
yeah,
this perspective, and I know they're super talented, right? Anyway,
yeah,
what I love is like, you with your haikus and Maya with her illustrations and stuff. It's just it makes me appreciate the work that I love, right? Our first love in terms of television. Um, and makes me see it in a new way. You know,
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
that's kind of like what I'm was trying to do with my film as well. It's like here is something but presented in a different
Yeah,
way.
definitely. And I think that's as I mentioned before, when it comes to doing poems and things like that, it's I've kind of drained the reservoir of Twin Peaks to I'm just so lacking in things. So when I see one of Maya's images,
Right.
it's like you said, it's something new, it's something fresh. It's you've taken something that we know and put it in a different perspective, but not necessarily different. It stirs something. There was that one of Audrey looking in the it's young
Yes.
Audrey in the toilet looking in the mirror and she sees the older, and that was just
Right.
that brought up thoughts that I'd already had about Audrey and her situation and said, okay, yeah, let's think about that. So, and that gave me something to write about. And I think, anything that provokes creativity is great. And I think the other thing I love about Maya is that she seems to do it all for love and then just puts it all oh, help yourself, print it out, make yourself a nice copy of it. And she,
Yeah.
I met her at the UK festival as well, and she is lovely. So.
Every interaction I've had with her has just been sublime. Um, I do have to say that she did do 3 illustrations for my film. One of Annie at Jack Rabbit's Palace, one of Cooper and Earl playing chess with Caroline looking, and then for the big one is that she designed the poster of Annie and Caroline in the Black Lodge holding hands wearing the dress.
Mm.
Um, I said, Maya, would you be willing to do the poster? She said, I'd love to. I said, this is what I'm thinking of. And we just kept adding to it. And so I was very, very happy. And I mean, she nailed Madison and Charlotte's look. I mean, like, it was like, you can definitely tell that's them on the poster, and she's super, super talented. And there's so many of her illustrations where I'm just like, wow, that's like, that's exactly what I needed to see today as a Twin Peaks fan. So,
And I think when this whole thing is when we have Act Five and stuff like that, I mean, I've said it already in the things I've written, but it's just a really
oh,
it's
you're
just a
talking
great
about you're
it's
talking
a
about
great
my film.
Queen of Hearts, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just it's such a great addition, and those people you found have done such a wonderful job of just embodying those roles. I mean, I think especially of I'm going to forget their name, the Caroline, your Caroline,
Oh, Charlotte.
Charlotte
Yeah.
Rowe, yeah, so, brilliant, just brought that character to life in a completely new way. And Annie, as you said when I first got the script, just that sass, that you being someone with agency that she's kind of brought to that as well, which is really good. I think I look forward to doing some more work on that, some more poems, based on this. It's just I think the last couple of months for me especially have been very taxing at work wise, and it's
Were
I
you?
do need to get into
I
this at some
I
point.
can't remember because it was so long ago that I sent you the script. It was long before I started shooting.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
what was it? I can't remember. Did you say something at first to me about like, wow, like Annie seems a little like abrasive or something? And
Yeah, possibly.
and yeah, I mean, even Madison said to me, she's like, the Annie that's in the script is not quite the Annie that we see in the show. And I said, yes, but this is the Annie post getting out of the Black Lodge. She's a little irritated,
Yeah.
you know.
It's true, but and Annie as a character is someone who has been through quite a lot, and
Yeah.
it's not, it's well within the realms of possibility that she's got this strength. But I mean, Norma's quite a strong character as well. It's not like you would expect Annie to be a
Well,
wilting violet, shrinking
well,
violet.
and Annie, one of the first things she says to Cooper is that I'm stubborn. So, I think she's in the show. She comes across as somebody who's obviously, coming back to the town, and she's trying to be, you know, she wants to be liked by people. She's, and so she's kind of just going with the flow. And her first day there, she's like meets the most popular guy in town, and he's taking her on dates, and all of a sudden she's winning Miss Twin Peaks. It's like it's like a fairy tale, literally. They talk about the queen, right? And and now she doesn't have to. Now she can totally let down her guard because she's upset. Like, wait a minute, I came. I was trying to be good. I was trying to be a nice person, and then I get repaid like this. Oh, the heck with this. You know what I mean? And so she's and I also love the idea of because the women in Twin Peaks are usually just really, they got the sweaters, they got the skirts, they got the, they're very dressed up, and it's very 1950s, and but also modern edge, but there's very much like a sexiness factor to it, and the idea of just putting Annie in like in Dean's like old Twin Peaks PE shirt and sweatpants. I love that. I just love the idea of just like, because when you're on the run, you don't have time to look good. You got to go. And when he says I got some old clothes in the car, and then you realize it's just his rumpled up old PE shirts and clothes and stuff like that, and it's just just seeing them running through the hospital, and I don't know, it's just kind of it always made me laugh. It's just that a good portion of the film, she's in a PE clothes, or she's covered in blood in a dress, and she's not having the best time. But I want to thank you for all your kind words, because you've written some incredible. You did an act 1, 2, and I think 4. You didn't do it.
Yeah, I missed 3.
You missed 3. Yeah, because I was thinking today, I was like, did you do an act 4? I was like, yeah, you did, because I remember you saying like this is. You said something like Annie is surrounded by some of the worst human beings you've ever met in your life.
Yeah. It's that and the unintentional inclusion of England football anthems in your work as well.
Well, I didn't know about that, but
yeah. No, it was just such a strange thing. 'Cause I heard Ness and Dormer and something else yesterday as well. What else I think it was in Stranger Things.
Probably.
It turned up in that as well.
Probably. But yeah, I mean, like, obviously in Act 4, and if you guys haven't seen Queen of Hearts, check it out. It's on YouTube. But she's just, a lot of that is a combination of what is hinted at in the show, and then also portions of the final dossier when it talks about Annie and her stepdad and all that on around Christmas, and it's a little different in the film, but not too much, but it's a little different just because of where we were filming. We couldn't we couldn't go all out, and like the book kind of insinuates. So, but still though, it's like I don't know if that scene needed to go further than what we show. I think it's enough.
You know what? Speaking of the final dossier, I know you said this previously as well. The more I think about that, the more I think that would have just worked so much better if those 2 books had been one big book.
I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't get on with the final dossier. I just find it far too kind of, it's like just a little wrap up thing. Oh, and then this happened, and this happened, and this character did this, and this character did it. It totally just does. It just does nothing for me. But I think if it was interspersed with all that other stuff that's in the secret history, it would work so much better. So,
well, remember before it was announced, it was called The Secret Lives of Twin Peaks, and so I have a feeling it was supposed to be one big book, but because it was coming out before the show, I think there was probably a gentleman's agreement to be like, listen, if we include these characters early, people are going to expect to see these characters, so let's hold this out. And because you can't go from The Secret History of Twin Peaks, which is like this thick textbook, to literally like a pamphlet for the final book. But as somebody who initially was put off by The Secret History, again, because it was like the first thing we'd gotten of Twin Peaks since Fire Walk With Me, I think if it had come out after season 3, I think I would have had a much more positive thing. I would have definitely had a more positive thing if both books had been one book. But for me, I did like the final dossier. I didn't maybe like everything about the final dossier, but I did like it overall because I wanted to know the characters, and it just seemed like it was it was a little downbeat because a lot of people ended up in hospitals and mental institutions or dead. But I did like the idea of Tammy talking about how she's feeling like the timeline is changing now and that type of thing. I like that. I like that aspect.
You mean Tamara?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Tamara, or
Tamara Preston.
we would call it Tamara Preston, but
Yeah.
There's Mark Frost Tamara, and then there's Lynch's Tammy. Yeah, I mean, I mean, even though it's called the final dossier, I don't think it's the final thing we're ever gonna get on Twin Peaks. It's too rich. It's
No.
In our lifetime there will be something else.
Yeah, I don't know when that happens, but eventually there'll be some kind of. I just hope they don't redo it.
Well, that's what I thought. That's what I thought was going to happen.
Characters, new stories, but the same town. That could work for me. It's the same way they talk about this Buffy reboot or whatever. Don't redo the old thing. Come up with some new stories.
Yeah, nobody wants to see. Nobody wants to see the same thing twice.
I mean, you mentioned like get some of those old director, Leslie Linker Glatter or someone in like that to direct. Someone who's got experience directing Twin Peaks, and have a, just don't turn it into some writer's room full of people who are just gonna, make a diluted version of it. Just get some.
And not to, I mean, not to, say something positive about my film, but one thing I wanted to show with Queen of Hearts is that it can be done. You can explore this material from other points of views and have it be just as interesting or provocative. Now, maybe obviously if you agree with me on that, but I think that, looking at the world of Twin Peaks from the eyes of Annie and Caroline, I mean, obviously no, Wyndham and Caroline are in Pittsburgh, but still it's the world of Twin Peaks. You're getting different perspectives. I mean, the Vlog Lady did a great review of Acts 2 and 3 where she said, yes, Dale Cooper is in Queen of Hearts, but it's his interactions with Annie or Caroline or Diane. So we're seeing him almost from the point of view of all these strong women in his life. And that, I didn't really think about it until she pointed that out. I was like, I guess, yeah, that is something that I unconsciously did.
I mean, I think sort of go back to the Secret History as well. I must say, because did you get that like on release day? Was that the first? Yeah. Because I ordered that on Amazon, and so it turned up at work. And I wanted to order it so to make sure I was there when it turned up. So it came to work, and I think as this was the first new content I'd had for literally 25 years. This was the biggest nerdgasm, I think. Oh, new Twin Peaks stuff as me dancing around the office. So they had the admin woman who had no clue what I was going on about. But you're excited. Yeah, I am. So, and I think, when I think about that book, and I love the audiobook version of it as well, because it's got all the voices and stuff like that. I think what I really love about the Secret History is all the stuff that's new. Or not new, all the stuff that's not about the characters that we already knew. I love all the stuff about what's his face, the rocket guy. John. Who is it? The interviews with L. Ron Hubbard and the guy who works for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I can't remember his name off the top of my head now. I did plenty of poems about him. But all that stuff and the UFOs and Colonel Milford, all these peripheral people, which I think just because that was actual new content, I think I just resonated with that so much more because I am interested in UFOs and stuff like that anyway. So I mean, I like that, even if Dana Ashbrook doesn't or didn't. I do. So I enjoyed that, and then when it got into the bits about the characters that I knew, I think I had trouble as a kind of left brain person about, okay, hang on, that doesn't make sense. That didn't happen. Ed shot her eye out ages ago. Why did that happen just after they got married and apparently about 2 weeks before Laura disappeared? They're too much. I know this is like a different timeline and a different universe, and you can explain all this, but it did kind of bother me a little bit. It doesn't bother me that much anymore, but it did kind of get on my nerves.
But do you think that book should have come out after season 3? See, I feel like people would be much more understanding of those changes after season 3, because before it blew up the message boards. Like, what is going on
Yeah,
here?
yeah, maybe. I remember at the time having read it, it gave me another lens to look at season 3. You know, as I looked at it, I wasn't just thinking about the original series. I was thinking about some of this stuff as well, and thinking how that could, you know, what is this all about?
Right.
And,
I thought
you
I
know,
thought Lewis,
I don't recall
I
not
thought we were
much.
going to get a flashback to Lewis and Clark or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wrote this. Oh God, it's awful. I wrote this little fan fiction story just after it finished, called "I'll See You in the Trees," which is about Chet Desmond coming. This is on my website actually. I'll have to
Did
go
you
back
did
and
you
read this
did
at
you
some point.
submit this to one of the 25 years later writing contests?
No, no, I didn't. I took about 200 copies of it to the UK festival and gave them out to people. I gave a copy to Michael Horst, and I gave a copy to Amy Shields and things like that. And I tried to give a copy to Sabrina, but was no, I don't. Yeah, I'm not allowed to take unsolicited bits of writing.
Mm.
So that was a bit awkward. But anyway, so this story, and let's see. So it happens with this guy going to a football game in Seattle, and he goes to the toilet, and all of a sudden there's a vortex and something, and he sees into this other place, and I can't remember what happens. He suddenly gets the idea that he has to drive. He has to drive to this place called Twin Peaks and find something. So he drives up there, and along the way we meet. He goes to the Lamplighter Inn, which
Mhm.
has been taken over and is now one of what were they going to call the double R when uh, in season 3 when Norma is going to sell it out? It's going to be one of like a franchise, but I can't remember Norma's double R or something like that.
Just on a side note, the Lamplighter
Sorry, yeah,
Inn, the
yeah.
Lamplighter Inn is actually in my area.
Oh right, wow.
Yeah. Now my area is nowhere near Twin Peaks, but the reason why I know it's what they're talking about is because there's lots of other references to my area in the show.
Oh right,
At one point, Dr. Jacoby in season 1 says, "Well, I'm planning a pilgrimage to Pebble Beach."
yeah.
Well, that's in my neck of the woods. Now that is right near where the Lamplighter Inn is. So
Oh
the
right.
fact that the writers know this area, they're throwing in restaurants from all over the place. So yes, the Lamplighter Inn is in Carmel, California. That used to, back in the day, at that time, Clint Eastwood was the mayor.
Yeah.
But I remember a friend of mine came to visit me, and we went to Carmel for dinner. And I said, "Oh, you want to see something you didn't expect to see? Here you go. Here's the Lamplighter Inn." So anyway, go on, continue on.
Oh no, so that's been taken over and is now part of a franchise, and the guy starts there, and the pie's awful because it's all like it's non-organic ingredients and all that basically. But he drives on, he gets to Twin Peaks, and through meeting various people, he then ends up in Glastonbury Grove,
Mhm.
and I can't remember exactly what happens, but it turns out that the trees, the sycamores, are all kind of trapped spirits. So they're
Mm.
all the spirits of various people. And one of them, so he manages to hook up the car battery to one of these trees and basically swaps places. So he ends up in the tree, and out pops Chet Desmond from where he's been. And like carries on like nothing, like oh, well, where have I been for 25 years? I had a lot of fun writing this thing.
Now,
It was in 3 parts, but it
not
was a
only did
complete just into everything.
not only did he show up 25 years later, but he showed up in another town because Deer Meadow was where
Yeah,
he
yeah, yeah,
disappeared, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So he's in it, Hawk's in it, Audrey's in it. There's all kinds of people that just show up in this little thing because I think when season 3 finished, I wasn't really ready to leave. I wanted to
yeah.
just have a little play around in there myself. So I just wrote this. I think it's about 5,000 words. But,
Well, that's what I did. I said, you know, yeah, it reminded me of the story that I thought up a long time ago, and I thought, wouldn't it be
yeah,
fun to see that story? And then I just was like, well, let's just try it. I saw Thor's film, the Summer House of Pearl Lakes, and I was like, well, let's try it. It'd be fun to do. And here we are, 5 years later, and Act 5 is coming out. So um it's funny I know you said you have the Z to A box set and it's still wrapped, but if you ever get
yeah,
a chance to watch it and you watch the behind the scenes, there's There's lots of behind the scenes things that you may not have seen yet. One of them is that in the initial conversation with Cooper and the Giant at the start of season 3, they showed the making of that, and there are lines that are cut out that we see them recording, and one of them is the Giant says to Cooper, "Beware of the 13th sycamore." Now, I don't know if that's an allusion to the evolution of the arm or what, but I wish that line had been in, in the show. Then there's lots of other things, like the Giant shows up in the Black Lodge at one point. It's like, I'd love to know the context of why he's there. Obviously, we know he's there at the end of season 2, but why is he there in season 3? So anyways, there's a lot of cool little moments behind the scenes that you'll see them shoot that never even made it into the show. And obviously they had to be signed off by Lynch to make it onto the behind the scenes. You can't just show whatever you want behind the scenes. They have to be, it has to be approved. So obviously Lynch was okay with having that kind of stuff shown. So
there wasn't a shot of Michael J. Henderson on James's bike, was there?
No.
No, in the sidecar, was it? Yeah.
No. But this kind of the story I found just before we started recording, I have to share it because it's hilarious. That's the story is called. Hey guys, let me make sure I got it. Yeah, the story is called "The Reason Why David Lynch Hates the Music of the '70s," and just kind of goes through some stuff. But it says. In 1984, David Lynch did an interview with Playboy magazine, and he said, "The 50s are just about it for me. I like the Beatles, but once they came in, everything changed in an okay way. I prefer the pre-Beatles era, even back to the 20s, from the 20s up to 1958. This completely makes sense, right? Or maybe 63 are my favorite years. Anything that happens in there, I would find moods that I would just totally love. When it comes to the 70s, Lynch wasn't so enthusiastic. The 70s to me were the worst. There can be things in the 80s that I love, high-tech things, new wave things, which echo the 50s, but the 70s, it just seems to be totally like leather and hair. There's nothing there. The 50s is closer to the original idea of what rock and roll is, so there's power in that original idea." I just love the idea that like he's making, I mean, this really explains a lot, because Eraserhead is a film that was made throughout the 70s, and yet there's no illusion that it's the 70s. You know what I mean? Like he's like, I'm going to make an anti 1970s film that will not have any relevance to the current decade we're in. In fact, Eraserhead seems more like a Buñuel 1920s film than anything else. But yeah, so David Lynch, he full on hates the 70s apparently. So makes sense. I don't know.
So who? I missed out on this. Who was it who had a new film at Cannes then? If it wasn't him,
well, I believe
David Cronenberg.
Well, there was Cronenberg, yes, but there was I believe they were selling a film called Lynch and Oz, and it's sort of like remember that? Do you ever see that documentary Room 237 about Kubrick's The Shining?
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be like that, like a bunch of people who have no connection to Lynch talking about his allusions to the Wizard of Oz, which by the way, if you've been following Fate Colossal on Twitter, he's like on top of this. Like he has so many things like showing don't dress the man behind the curtain, as he shows Leland coming behind the curtain and Fire Walk with Me, and there's just a lot of things that they're finding. I even threw him a bone, and I said, hey, don't you think God of Light is a close proximity to how about a little fire scarecrow? It's like, I mean, obviously we knew Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart, but there is a tremendous amount of Wizard of Oz stuff going on in Twin Peaks as well. But I think it just has to do with Lynch. It's in his DNA, that movie, as well as other movies, but so it's just naturally going to come out at times. I don't even think he realizes it. I mean, Wild at Heart is so on the nose that it's the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
even though
he just does. He doesn't watch that many films, does he, Lynch? Does he sit
I don't
down
even
and
think
he just, he
I don't
just
even think he watches the Wizard of Oz. I think it's just something you've seen a million times, and it's just in you. And what's interesting about it is it's not the Frank Baum Wizard of Oz; it's the MGM Judy Garland Wizard of Oz, which is not at all the books.
no.
It's like when Sam Raimi did the Oz the Great and Powerful. He was allowed to take whatever he wanted from the books, but nothing from the movie because MGM owned the movie. So, um, yeah, but yeah, I follow Fake Claw still on Twitter because like some of the stuff he's coming up with is just like really, really interesting.
Yeah.
That like I was not like I thought, okay, cool, he's gonna go in this area, he's going into this territory, cool. Yeah, but he's kind of picking some scabs I didn't know were there. So, do you follow anybody on social media that
Ew. Yeah, nobody I think that you don't follow in this community. No. I mean, I just I'm because I'm plugged into so many Facebook groups to do with other fan bases like Star Trek, Star Wars, Lost. There's always stuff coming up there about other things. So it's easy to go down these rabbit holes and get pulled into one theory or another, especially with some of that new Star Wars content, bits and pieces. The row over this new series, I don't seem to understand.
well, let me show you just a couple of these things that he's pulling up here. So obviously, the vortex coming from Vertigo,
Oh,
and here's the Wizard of Oz, and all that. Let's see here, more of that. Let's see. Like the fact that the whole witch's spell and where it puts everybody to sleep. It's very much like
right.
the woodsman putting everybody to sleep and the
Oh, right.
and the girl passing out in the bed.
Yeah, I like the
Um,
one about Ray Wise melting as well. The water. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
right. And what's interesting about that in the original series, right before that happens, Dick Tremaine says "Got a light,"
Yeah.
right? And then they show the sprinkler system, right, dripping,
Hmm.
and then what do they call the giant in season 3? They called him Fireman. So if he's like putting out the fires and all that, um, it's just very, very interesting stuff here.
Hmm.
Again, here's the man behind the curtain, and here's the idea of like just. I mean, this is a traditional story of like somebody who enters a new world and meets all these new people and all that.
Hmm.
So anyway, just figured you
Okay.
guys should just know about it because it's kind of cool. Anyway, Richard, I have to thank you so much for joining
Yeah,
me. I
no
really
worries.
appreciate it. And I don't want to keep you up too late because it's
Yeah.
8 hours ahead here.
Well,
But let people know where they can find you on social media, your blog, your Twitter account.
yeah, it's richardaustinwriter.com, or I'm just at Richard F. Austin, and I'm on Facebook, Richard Austin Writer. So there's all kinds of ways. Oh, and YouTube, What the Haiku. Maybe you want to go back and delve into history. The last time I did some of those, but there's plenty of haikus to watch. Me writhing around on the living room floor, or on top of a building, or
Well,
yeah,
you did
outside
some
the
really
hospital.
clever ones. I mean, you did a lot of backwards talks and all that. So I mean,
Yeah, no, it's good to dust that off every once in a while. I think it's you forget about the vowels. That's the difficult bit. But usually it's just you have to break it down phonetically into little bits, otherwise it just sounds weird. Um, like fear has to be I if it's all yeah. So weird. Yeah, I practiced these quite a number of times. I don't know what the wife thought really, to be honest, hearing this stuff going on through the walls. What the
right.
hell is he doing now? But yeah, it was a very interesting year, and you can revisit that if you like. Uh, oh yeah. No, that's me. And thanks for having me on. It's been a
Of
pleasure as
course.
usual.
Of course. And all you guys follow us here on YouTube. You can also follow us on Patreon, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Email us anytime. Check out Queen of Hearts Acts 1 through 4. Act 5 will be up hopefully within a few weeks. And all right, we will see you soon. Take it easy. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon. All right, take care.